All right. All right. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us this evening and taking time out of your day, especially our residents. Thank you so much for taking time to spend your evening with us, your Saturday evening. I know that's a lot asking. Go ahead and start some intros. So I'm Fadi Hanal Sheikh. I'm a neuro applicant this cycle. And then I have with me one of the other NMatch leaders, Rushni.
Hi everyone, my name's
And
Husein.
Yeah. And so I'll start with the intros of our residents tonight. So I have Dr. Alvin Singh, PGY4 from UCLA. I have Dr. Adnan Husein, PGY3 from UCLA. And then I have Dr. Joel Sullivan, Chief Resident at UAB. And then we also will be having Dr. Nimi Vikram Surya, PGY3 from Tulane. She should be joining later. Just to give everyone some idea of how it's going to go on tonight. So this panel is specific to rank order list. We'll just have me and Rushni both have about 5 to 6 questions each to discuss, asking each of the residents just regarding their process, how they went about it. And then if you guys have any questions, feel free to put in the chat, raise your hands. We'll go ahead and let you unmute if you have any questions for the residents themselves. If you have a question regarding their program specifically, just make sure to highlight it in the chat by either adding their name, and then we'll let you go ahead and ask that question. All right, without further ado, we can go ahead and get started with some questions.
Okay. Hi everyone. Thank you so much for being here. I have the first question. So, what are some of the key factors generally that you considered when you were ranking programs, and how did those priorities kind of evolve through the interview process?
So I can take first stab at it. So for me, location was really the biggest factor that played a role in my decision making. That was kind of first and foremost. Um, at the time when we were matching, I had two kids, and so being kind of in the same general area that we had lived in was probably the most important factor, just being close to support groups. But beyond location, I really was looking at kind of strength of program and breadth of experiences at various programs that I interviewed at. So those were probably the top two factors that played a role in my decision.
Yeah, I can go next. Hi, everybody. So I think for me, I kind of broke it up into three categories. So geography, extremely important, professional goals, and then just overall vibes. I think, in terms of location, of course, me and my wife both couples matched. So that, having a spouse that played a big part in consideration. Um, and then additionally, in terms of location, patient demographics, the cultural diversity of a location, and then thinking about things that I want to do outside of residency as well, right? Enjoying outdoors or entertainment scene or just things like that to consider, that fills my cup, so to speak, outside of residency and the work. In terms of professional goals, I thought about which programs had the fellowship that I was interested in, movement disorders, as well as some of the other professional goals that I had that were interested in, health equity and advocacy. The research mentors, the mentorship is so important for when we're choosing this next step because I like to say that, or one of my mentors once told me that, during medical school, we want great mentors, but in the residency phase, we really are now looking for great sponsors that put you in positions to, help you succeed in your career goals and personally as well. So that mentorship was extremely important in how I made my rank list. And then overall vibes, getting a sense, sometimes it's hard over Zoom. I definitely acknowledge that. But getting a feel for what the residents are like. Do you feel like you fit in? Um, and the faculty themselves, getting a sense of do the faculty like being there? Do they stay after after they train, for as residents, as to staying as fellows, to staying as attendings? What is that culture of being at some training institution, but also thinking beyond like those next steps. And then just overall having a great diversity among the residents as well. Um, yeah. So, Adnan, you're next.
Yeah, I can use it a lot. I totally agree with everything that both of you guys have mentioned. One thing I will add, and it was a weird mindset shift that I had to sort of go through going from medical student to resident was when making this decision, you have to remember that this is a place where you are now going to like have that progression almost for me as someone who didn't have like a prior career before medicine. This is where I'm going to like go from students to a real life human. And I think that is really important because it sort of shapes your your adulthood. I think you want to be in a place where you feel comfortable to explore not like your professional goals, your personal goals, your the hobbies that you hope to continue to grow or new hobbies that you want. This is a place where you are building a life for yourself for at least like 4 years for categorical programs or 3 years for the advanced programs. So it is a sizable period and unlike medical school where a lot of people they get into one or two medical schools, you are a hot commodity and you have a lot of power even if it feels like you don't. So this is an opportunity for you to flex that power and go somewhere where or rank the places that you feel that you will grow best as a human being. Yeah.
Thank you for that. I feel so empowered listening to that. Being in this position right now, it is stressful and there's so much to consider. So, no, that's awesome. That's good to hear. Okay, I think Fadi has the next question.
Yeah, echoing that. Thank you so much, guys. My next question is, what advice would you give applicants about weighing the prestige of a program versus how they felt during the interview?
Um, my opinion was the prestige is one thing, and there's different rankings of programs, and usually there's some algorithm that puts those rankings together. Usually it's weighs heavily on like research dollars and things like that. For me, the most important thing was the vibes and the way the residents interacted with each other, the way that they interacted with the faculty, the way they interacted with me as an applicant. That was by far more important to me than just the way that the order of which the programs showed up on some U.S. news list.
Yeah, I think echoing that, you definitely want to be at a place that you feel comfortable, speaking up and feel like residents have your back and um, you know, being in a place that may not have that support, built in from your administrative leadership will definitely make a rough 4 years. So I think it's a huge priority to have is the support that you get.
Yeah, and I'll just finish by saying I think a lot of people, everyone has different goals. As Alvin has mentioned, we all kind of have our personal and professional goals that we're pursuing. And everyone, I've met some people that prestige really matters to them, and especially when they were looking for fellowship, like we're looking for more programs that had a bigger name or more prestige. But me personally, I was more about the program and the people within the program, and I definitely didn't want to go to a place that just had a good name if I was going to be miserable for 4 years. Because you're going to be working with these people day in and day out. You're going to be working really hard call shifts together, and you're going to be stressed, and you're going to need support. And so definitely going to a place where you feel supported and is a good working environment's I think probably of utmost importance. So prestige does matter to some, and I think it should play somewhat of a role. And you definitely wanted to factor that in, but I think the work environment's going to be more important.
Thanks so much for that, guys.
Yeah, thank you.
Rashid, do you want to do the next one or? Oh, you're muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay, sorry about that.
you're good.
So Alvin touched on this, the difference between a mentor and a sponsor. So how did you guys weigh the strength of faculty mentorship at a program in your decision making? And what signs do you think applicants should look for when they're assessing what the mentorship opportunities are at various programs?
That's a really great question. I think that's actually something that I was really looking for when I was an applicant. I think there's two things. One, talk to the residents. If you even you know bring that up, you will be able to tell based on their response how mentorship works at their program and how impactful and how meaningful that mentorship is. So regardless of any question that you have, the residents at the program have the answers. And so I would suggest whether it be during like the resident social or prior to the interview or even after the interviews, you should, if you're interested in your program, reach out to those residents and try to get some of those honest answers. So that's one. The second way is during the interview day or even at the social, try to get a better understanding of if there is formalized mentorship at the program that you're interested in. Is there a specific like system or process in place for you to be connected with either senior residents, fellows, faculty in subspecialties that you're interested in, and even like more educational faculty? Are you specifically, paired up with people, and how meaningful is that relationship? Because some programs have formalized mentorship and some programs don't. And so it's something that you should try to explore if that's something that's important to you.
Yeah, I agree. It was extremely important for me as well. I mean, I come from the view that like, I wouldn't be where I am today without my mentors. So it was important for me to be at a place that, I could see myself growing with like my co-residents and have that support from faculty and senior residents as well, right? I could look up to these people and see myself in their shoes at some point. So I think that was extremely important. Yeah, yeah. So definitely something to consider.
Yeah, I'm not sure when I was applying, I was thinking a whole lot about like having faculty as kind of sponsors for you and like promoting you as a um, uh, someone who's going to be seeking a job after 4 years, but definitely on interviews would ask specifically the mentorship that was in place and if it was a more of a formal program or if it was just kind of a, hey, reach out to this person and stay in touch with them. I think another way to kind of look at it too is to see what subspecialties are represented at each program, and then you will know if you're interested in whatever subspecialty that there's going to be faculty there who can provide advice and mentorship throughout residency. Um, that's been my experience here. Pretty much any faculty has an open door policy, so if you want to talk to them or to pick their brain about something specific, whether it's related to the field or pursuing a job or a fellowship or whatnot, there's someone there to answer your questions. So that's kind of a one way to kind of do it if you haven't asked yet. Yeah.
And
Thank you.
one thing I'll add as well is during the interview process as well. I mean, that's when you're kind of when you're interviewing with faculty, kind of seeing, would this person be a good mentor to me? But also, if the program goes out of their way to, set you up during the interview process, that's definitely a good sign as well.
Thank you. Okay, I think Fadi has the next one.
Thank you, guys. So My next question is, did you think about the clinical exposure and case variety at programs, and did that influence your ranking decision in any way?
Yeah, I would say absolutely. Although it was kind of hard to gauge without having having some personal experience at the program. Um, and I think Alvin and I's we were the first year to apply and interview on Zoom, and so we didn't really get to experience visiting each program like everyone before us had. So I felt like it was kind of hard to gauge that in a way. We were pretty much just having to ask the residents to kind of give us a general idea of what they experience. And but I think if you talk to enough people, you can kind of gauge the volumes that the program has and the different services that they have. That also can tell you, if there's five different services, a mix of inpatient and consults and stroke and whatnot. You're gonna have varied experiences and get a lot of good exposure. But that definitely played a big role because my I want to focus mostly on clinical side of medicine and seeing patients, and so I wanted to get a program that had good volumes and good exposures. So that definitely played a big role in my decision.
Yeah, in addition, I think one other thing to, in addition to volume, which is definitely important, another thing to focus on is the diversity of experience. And I think a lot of programs now offer, different rotations in different clinical settings. And I guess initially I discounted how important that would be. In terms of building like a clinical toolkit, the way neurology is practiced in different settings is, vastly different depending on the resources available and depending on the patient population. And so I would suggest you know, considering the power of diversity and with it when you're evaluating different experiences at different programs.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I have too much to add. Honestly, I totally agree with what Joel and Adnan. I think, having that diversity, the clinical volume, you're going to get great training wherever you go, to be honest. You're really going to get residency is about honing your craft as a neurologist and learning that art of neurology. And you're going to get good training wherever you go. Um, it's part of it is like building that community, but it is I think very helpful to have that diversity and going to different settings as well. So not much more to add.
Thank you, guys. Roshni?
Yeah. Thanks, guys. So, next question. If a program is relatively new or it's undergoing, changes in leadership or some sort of restructuring, how important do you think that is to weigh in when you're making your decision?
Yeah, I think that's definitely something to consider. I personally didn't come across that during my interview cycle, but it does say something about having some continuity, I think, in the leadership and having that repertoire, knowing how to run things smoothly, and then handling things when, um, you know, stuff happens. When LA has a bunch of wildfires and how to handle those situations, right? Um, so those are questions you can certainly ask on the trail and ask residents for their candid answers on how issues are handled, or how challenges have been overcome within the program, or if a resident is really struggling, what your program did to help that resident. Those are certainly questions in confidence that you can ask residents to get a feel for it. But yeah, I think it is something to keep in mind, for sure.
Well, one caveat I might add is if a program has had a recent change in leadership and you find yourself at that program, you may want to ask, is that change in leadership a response to something that maybe happened or had been happening and potentially that is actually a sign of, a step in the right direction. So I think I wouldn't necessarily take everything as like just face value. Um, Alvin mentioned earlier, you're going to get good clinical experience everywhere. And, um, you know, every program goes through like these phases where at some point leadership does have to change over. So I wouldn't alarm all the bells just because a PD is stepping down or something like that. Ask the questions though.
Yeah, I can't say I have a lot of experience personally with those issues, but it would be something to keep in mind. And I don't think it should necessarily deter you from a program if you're really interested, but just to maybe do some more research and figure out kind of like you were saying, kind of why that those changes are happening. Um, and because it may be a step in the right direction. So something to keep in mind, but I wouldn't just discount a program just because changes are happening. Newer programs, of course, are going to have more hiccups and more things to learn as they go along than programs that have been established and been going for a long time. So I think if you're willing to accept that, there's going to be some things that are going to change probably during your residency to adjust to being a new program, then there shouldn't be any issue with to go to a new program in my mind.
Thanks,
So.
guys.
Okay, so I think my next question, Alvin kind of touched on it earlier regarding subspecialties in neurology and exploring that. So, considering fellowship training post-residency, how much influence should fellowship opportunities at a program have on your rank order list?
I think when I was looking at it more of did programs just have a lot of different subspecialties so that I could get experience in those subspecialties and not as much did they have the fellowship? Because I think most neurology fellowships are um, pretty attainable for anybody in any subspecialty that you want to pursue. So I think it was important for me going into the rank, just thinking about programs and what they had to offer in terms of training and varied experiences. It's nice that programs have, if they have a bunch of fellowships, then if you really like your residency and you want to stay and continue training there, that's a great option. But there's lots of good opportunities elsewhere for fellowship as well. So I think going into interviews, that was a big deal to me. But then as I kind of went through interviews and learned that at programs that don't have maybe more than two or three fellowships, their residents were still matching at great fellowships at other places. And it didn't seem to really hinder their experience or ability to attain a fellowship that they wanted to go to. So I think it's nice, but I don't think it's a necessity.
Yeah, if a program doesn't have like a fellowship in your program or your fellowship of interest, I think it might be good to just ask like, hey, what is your exposure in that specific field? So for example, I went to a movement disorders conference a couple of months ago, and um, two of the residents I was chatting with like didn't have a fellowship program for movement disorders, and um, didn't and also didn't feel like they got a lot of good exposure to movement disorders in general. Had one movement disorders neurologist at their program. So they, really felt like that part was lacking in their education. So, but other programs may not have a fellowship, but might have two or three movement disorders people that do a bunch of procedures, same for other fellowships. So I think just digging into kind of the facts would be helpful there.
And sort of a branch off of that, I think if if the program you're looking at does have the fellowships that you are interested in, take a look at who fills those spots. If is the program sort of retaining their own residents? The residents, if they are, it sort of indicates to you that the residents want to stay at that program. That usually alludes to the fact that they feel that they have a good network at that program. They have the mentorship that they need, and they feel comfortable continuing their medical education at that program. Versus if the program never takes their own residents, it would be something to, scratch your head at least from my perspective.
Thanks so much, guys. Rushing.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Okay, so next question. What aspects of the curriculum structure did you guys think about when you were finalizing your rank order? Did you think about whether the program had an X plus Y, 24-hour call? Like, was some of that, important to you guys?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head for sure. So, for me, X plus Y was really important. And people have completely different, opinions. I am someone who works really poorly after being up for 24 hours. And so I wanted to very much limit my exposure to that. And so I wanted to go to a program that did not have a 24-hour plus calls. Um, Another thing is from an education standpoint, I really liked programs that had like didactics that were like protected for residents. I thought that was really important. It's sort of hard to learn things when you are also, responsible for patients at the same time clinically. And so I think having some like time set away to do didactics, a lot of programs do that now, and I think that it's really important for the residents.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, like most of your learning will happen through the patients that you see, right? So seeing your patient and reading up on, myasthenia gravis, myasthenia crisis, or whatever it might be, right? But I think it's helpful to have a structured curriculum, a didactics like Adnan was mentioning, um, because it allows the opportunity for you to learn from experts in the field, right? And subspecialists in their areas of interest that are incredibly passionate about, certain topics that they research that they do or the work that they do. So having that opportunity, I think, is very helpful. I didn't think it was like a deal breaker, if or deal maker really, but I think it's certainly a plus.
Yeah, don't have a whole lot to add. Just I guess as we've said before, there's good training kind of pretty much wherever you go. And so I really try to just compare um, again, kind of how much exposure you're going to get and how many different varied experiences within the program you're going to get. Every program seems to have a little bit different structure of didactics, but for the most part, it seems to be protected and seem to be, a pretty regular schedule and even, scheduled didactics during the week, but also extracurricular, like, socials outside of work where it may be more of like a social journal club or like a social time where you can get together outside of work and spend time with your co-residents, but also learn at the same time. And um, so I think most programs offer good opportunities for that. So it did play a role, but it seemed to be pretty even across the board. I don't remember too many programs that just didn't have many didactics or protected time as well. So it seemed pretty even. Um, but it did play some influence. So
Thank you.
Okay, touching on something that all three of you discussed a little bit, like the vibe of the interview itself. So, what interactions during your interview day most influenced your impression of the culture at different programs?
I felt like it was pretty easy to tell if the residents enjoyed being around each other and liked hanging out. Um, there weren't that many programs, but I remember one in particular where I think three out of the four residents showed up late and they didn't seem very interested. And, they kind of just sat there like this the whole time. And they didn't seem very happy to meet us and talk about their program. And those were big red flags. But, you could tell in some places everyone's, whether they're meeting together or not, or everyone's just on Zoom at their own house. So you could tell that, they enjoyed talking to each other and being with each other and spending time together. So, yeah.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think the things that drew me to my top programs were the interactions that I saw between residents on the socials. I know the socials are extremely exhausting, and it's so hard to smile for an hour and a half every time you do it. But you can 100% tell based on the interaction that the residents have with each other. You know, do they know each other's kids' names? Do they hang out? Like, how often do they hang out? What are, like, what do they actually know about each other? Because at least, and everyone has different priorities, but for me, I really wanted to go to a program where the people I work with would end up being like my family. And that is what I was trying to suss out during the socials and the interview. And I think you can usually tell during the social, the level of enthusiasm the residents have for each other.
Yeah, not too much to add. I think it's pretty straightforward, like being able to kind of gauge the vibes during the interview, social hours, and just trying to see like, oh, this person will be my senior one day, and getting, how does that dynamic work? So yeah, not much more to add. I think just in general, just try and talk and try and meet people. I think that's what I would encourage, is just try and have more conversations if you can. I know it's really exhausting, but um, certainly helpful to help make your decision also.
Thank you for that, guys. Rashni?
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. Kind of going off of that, if you didn't get a chance to go to the social, what is the best way to kind of assess like the vibe or the culture of a program? Like, is a second look a good idea? Should you reach out to a resident from that program? What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, I would. I would definitely reach out, whether it's to the chiefs, the program leadership, the coordinator, just to set up meetings with the residents, and I think that's also telling, right? If they kind of ghost you, or if they do set you up with somebody that's really excited but just couldn't make the social for whatever reason, you didn't get a chance to meet them, or you can make it yourself. I think the lengths at which a program goes to invite you to the program says a lot about it.
Yeah, I'll second all of that, and I do think second looks are a good idea, because it is really hard to gauge the program without having some sort of interaction personally with them. So interview day is, very kind of structured, and it feels kind of, I don't know, it just feels totally different from the rest of the experience. So I think if you could visit the place and interact and meet some of the residents and the faculty, it'd be worth your while for sure.
Okay, thank you.
Next question I got is just regarding post-interview. So, what resources did you guys use to gather maybe additional information about the faculty members or the departments or things of that sort that weren't truly transparent during the interview itself?
I think you sort of said it in the question. I feel like if something after talking to residents, and going through the social and going through the interview, if you feel like things were not transparent, I would actually consider that a red flag. I think this is a long-winded, usually the interview days are multiple hours, and you have the social the day before. If you have like prepped questions and you don't feel satisfied with those answers, of course, afterwards you can reach back out to the program, reach out to the chiefs, reach out to the residents. But if you feel like your questions aren't being answered in a way that you feel is adequate, I think that is, again, I think that's like an alarm going off.
Yeah, to Adnan's point earlier, you're in the driver's seat as an applicant. I think that's really what the algorithm favors you and in your decisions on ranking. So just remember that, remember that you have that power. And you know, if a program doesn't prioritize you, and making sure your questions are not heard and answered, then you should deprioritize that program.
Yeah, I agree. I don't have anything to add.
Thank you guys. Completely agree. Rashni?
Okay, we've talked about how, there's a certain amount of stress involved with all of this, but how did you guys manage uncertainty in the whole decision-making process? And, when did you actually feel confident about your final rank order list?
You won't feel comfortable until match day. But I think you just have to keep telling yourself that, you know, all these programs are going to be excellent. You are going to get excellent clinical training. You're going to get a unique experience anywhere you go. And the program that you rank number one, two, or three, none of those programs are perfect anyways. So I think it's really important to frame that you are going to absorb the best qualities of the place that you end up at. And at the end of the day, the experience is what you make it.
Yeah, I agree. You're never comfortable until you open the email or the letter, however you may get it. Um, I was a nervous wreck pretty much the whole time through. But yeah, I agree. I tried to just kind of stick to what my initial instincts were. Once I finalized my rank list, I just submitted it and I never opened that web page again until, yeah, or never again actually. So just kind of go with your instincts, don't overthink it. Um, and I kind of look at it as when you're going through a test and you often, when you go back and change your answer, you often change it to the wrong answer. And so that's kind of how I feel going back and changing your rank list a bunch of times. Um, Again, just kind of trust your gut and your initial instincts and then just try and fill your time with other hobbies because once you start residency, it's extremely busy. And so kind of use the time to unwind and do something else and focus your time and attention on other things.
Yeah, I tried to distract myself as much as I possibly could because yeah, it's tough. I mean, it's you know, you could be moving across the country or moving to a different country. And that's so stressful, to think about and plan, um, especially if you're a big planner, especially with the family, etc. Um, it's really tough, but kind of reminding yourself that you're going to end up where you're meant to be, honestly, as cliche as it sounds. Um, you're going to go somewhere where you fit best because not only did you pick that program or rank it a certain way, but that program also picked you and ranked you a certain way. So that's why this is a match, right? So uh, you don't want to end up somewhere that someone didn't rank you high, it just kind of makes sense. Um, so just give yourself some grace during that time.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you guys. So, touching off something that Adnan mentioned, so I know not all the programs are perfect. There are flaws no matter where you look. In retrospect, are there any aspects of the residency programs you ranked highly that you wish you had thought about more deeply or differently?
I can't really think of anything. Honestly, it's just you go through the process and you learn so much, but um, I think it just lets you know really kind of who you are as an applicant and as a person, and again, try and not think back and regret too many things. So I think it happens the way it's supposed to happen, and like you said, you make your rank the way that you feel based off of your experiences, and the programs are the same, and it's supposed to benefit you. So I don't really have anything to add.
Yeah, I think, ultimately you are making a rank list based on your priorities now and the priorities you perceive that you're going to have later on. And you know, your priorities are going to change. And so just know that, you know, there's a level of flexibility that you're also going to have. This isn't like getting any other job where you can interview at a bunch of places and pick a place and then jump to another place in 3 months if you don't like it. So, you know, everyone understands the magnitude of importance of this process. Um, but I think it's also a forgiving process. I think, you know, you're at the end of the day, July 1st is going to come and you're going to show up and there's going to be a bunch of people there that are like-minded, but also unique. And it's going to be a great feeling because you're going to be on this new start of a journey where, you know, this is what you've been working towards and you've been working really hard for it. So, you know, I know it's a long-winded answer of nothing, but it's all going to be okay.
Yeah, I echo that for sure. You, you're going to end up where you're meant to be again, and you know, I can't think of any particular things that I would change in terms of how I prioritize things. I mean, logistically, I like made this huge spreadsheet of like things that I considered, and then at the end of the day, I like threw it out because I'm like, you know, I'm just this is I went based off the vibes, you know, and that gut feeling goes a long way. So listen to your gut. Um, keep put that on the spreadsheet too, like gut feeling, you know, if you need to. Um, but yeah, you're gonna have amazing training, you know, and enjoy this process, this journey, and if you can, try and get to know some of your co-applicants, because neurology is a small world. So it's really nice to, you know, start building that community early.
Thank you so much for that, guys. Rush.
Yeah, thanks, guys. I think for sure my spreadsheet is, yeah, I can't even remember the last time I opened it, like it's done with. I think that's all the questions we had prepared. If anyone on the, anyone who has joined us here today wants to unmute and ask a question that you had that hasn't been covered and we haven't touched upon, feel free to do that now. You can also put your questions in the chat.
I guess while everyone's thinking, so I got one question that probably is on everyone's mind. How'd you guys deal with the anxiety?
I distracted myself. You know, um, traveled a little bit. I highly recommend that your fourth year, at the end of the year, and spend time with your friends, your family, especially if there's the potential to move, you know, across the, you know, to a different country or across the country. Your friends in the look in your med school friends, you know, you may not see them for a while. Um, and coordinating, you know, vacation time or during residency is not easy. So, um, I think just try and enjoy Smell the Roses during fourth year. It's a good time.
Yeah, MS4 is so fun. You have so much time, especially like nearing the end where like nothing really matters. Um, really just enjoy it. Enjoy the time with the people that had sort of gotten you through the 4 years of med school. Um, and but you'll be anxious through the entire time, and it's okay.
Yeah, same things that they've said. I've hung out with family and friends, picked up or picked back up on some hobbies that I had neglected going through interview process and doing away rotations and finishing up the rest of fourth year. But the second half, just really taking that free time and spend time with loved ones and friends and travel and it's a good time to do like a bucket list trip to just go somewhere and not think about anything. And yeah, you're going to be anxious, like they said, but um, find ways to distract yourself.
Sure. Thanks, guys. Okay, we have a question from Nick. This is actually something that I wanted to touch on and completely forgot, but he wanted to ask what you guys think about letters of intent, whether you guys sent one. Is there a benefit, and when is the right time to send one if you are sending one?
Yeah, I did send one to my top program. Um, I think it doesn't hurt. I think it certainly I would. I think that there's not really a right time, but uh, earlier is better. I think earlier is better because programs as they interview will be making their own rank lists, right? So um, the sooner you get them, the sooner you show initiative or that you know what you want per se. And I think it's helpful to at least get that out there. But that being said, um, I'm not I don't think that it should change much as far as um, if you decide not to, that's totally fine too. I think that's definitely reasonable.
I sent one as well. Again, I'm not sure how much it benefited me. I haven't asked, um, but yeah, it does show just continued interest, and um, especially if you do a second look or you're reaching out to people after your interview, then you're showing continued interest, and so I think it's just one other way to do that, and like Alvin said, I think the earlier probably the better. As long as you are pretty sure before you send it, because the worst thing is you change your mind, and you don't want to send the wrong message or be that person. So just kind of one, be sure, send it early. But yeah, I think it's worth sending for sure.
Thanks, guys. Okay, we don't have any other. Oh, okay, something just. Okay, Nick's saying thank you. Thanks, Nick. Okay, if there's anything else that you guys just wanted to touch on, anything that you can kind of remember from that time, or any, last words of advice that you think would be helpful, that would be great.
Programs are going to be lucky to have the the residents that they end up with. You have all of the power. You may not feel that you do, but you really do. And so take this time, make your decision, don't second guess it. Enjoy the rest of this med school journey before you start an even more exciting time in your life.
Yeah, really enjoy these last few months and soak it all in. Again, kind of use this time to take advantage, really, to spend time with friends and family, and do things that you haven't been able to do for 3.5 years because you've been so busy. Um, you guys deserve some rest and relaxation, some time of not any stress or phone calls or pages, and because that's going to come. So really enjoy this time. And again, when you're making your list, I think the biggest piece of advice, just go with your gut. You know yourself well, and you know what your goals are and what you've worked towards, and you know the programs that you feel like you would fit in best and who are going to give you what you're looking for. So stick with your gut.
Yeah, I agree with all that. Just remember that you've worked so hard to get where you are right now. And any program is going to be lucky to have you. And you're going to contribute to this field and help a lot of patients very, very soon. And your patients are lucky to have you. So, take some time for yourself too. I think that's important. Just like Joel and Anand were mentioning, spend time with your loved ones. Pick up those hobbies again. Because being the individual that you are also is very important to filling up your cup to give to your patients later.
Thanks so much, guys. And thank you again for being so genuine and upfront about everything. Really appreciate it. I'm sure everyone, all our audience, also all the applicants, we appreciate it and your advice. If there's any other last minute questions or anyone wants to say anything, if not, we can end it a little bit early.
Yeah, thanks
Okay.
for Shane and Fadi for doing this. Really appreciate it.
No,
Thanks.
absolutely, guys.
For organizing, guys.
Yeah. Thanks for
Thank
having
you so
us.
much. Thank you guys
Absolutely.
for
Let
being
me
here.
Thank you so much.